Welcome to this demonstration of a language app that I've been building. I built it for two reasons. One is because most of the language apps out there try to teach you the language. In this case, I wanted to build a set of tools that I can use to follow my own process for language learning. And then the other reason was to experiment with integrating artificial intelligence with basic web user interfaces. And so I'll take you for a little tour of this and show you how I did that. So first we have this home page, and this is basically a place for users to enter any content they come in contact with. So that could mean just typing into this box here and adding a word that you read or you see or you hear. But often the content you want is audio content. So there's a way to record with the record button here. You can upload files by clicking this button here. But today what we'll do is we'll use the podcast upload feature. So here I've actually already put in a URL to this podcast. And so it has saved that URL here. So if I just click on it and click load, then I get the episodes, the most recent episodes for that podcast. And if I just click on the one that I want, so it's uploaded it into the system here, but 16 minutes is a lot to transcribe, so we require that you bring it down to 2 minutes or less. So for example here, let's just say we want to capture the first minute from the end of the first minute to the second minute. Click trim. So now we have that. If you play this here, you can see that it's been trimmed, and click save. So now what we can do is transcribe that, and this is using OpenAI's Whisper model to transcribe. And it gives us back this transcription. And so we have all this text, but what's nice about this is we can then save it and then use it in all kinds of ways. So I'll click Save Recording, and it's saved here. So now if I click on this, if I open it, I have this box here that allows me to make requests of the text. So I can do something like say, let's just do of the first sentence, right? So this text is freeform, or these requests are freeform. You can write whatever you want. Click extract, and it gives me a list of all the nouns in the first sentence. And then I can click save on these nouns, and they will go into my library, which we'll look at next. But you can do all kinds of other things. So you could say, for example, explain the grammar of, it doesn't matter if you spell it wrong, click explain, and that opens it in this chat here. So it sends the file, it sends your request, and then it explains it. And of course you can ask more follow-up questions. So that's a really useful way of just taking content and putting it directly into a chat. And the chat's already primed with knowing the language that you're interested in. Chat also has some interesting features. So for example, I can say, well, let's try the same request. List all of the nouns in the first sentence of the German paragraph, so it knows the right one. So it took the first sentence of this paragraph, but you can see that it popped up a button that is not just a regular message, it's actually an interactive button that I can click to save that word to my library. Let's say, for example, list some other similar words. And so it lists more words, right? And so this is kind of a way of interacting with your content, but in a way that lets you capture the pieces that are important. So that's how chat works. And chat, of course, is available anywhere on the site, but you just have to click this chat button, so that pops up. The other thing that we did is all of these words here you can click on. And when you click on a word, it gives you the option to copy it, which is a common feature. And part of the reason I did this is because on a phone, it can be actually much more tedious to get a copy, or save or these other features. On a computer, it's easy to copy and paste, but the idea is for this to work really well on a phone as well. So you can click any word and you can copy it, or you can just send it directly to the chat and then ask questions about that word. Okay, so that's just the first page. That's just the home page. If we go to our library, we can see all kinds of words that have been added. And these words, the interface here allows you to do a lot of interacting with these words. So for example, if we click this, you won't be able to hear this, but what this does is it does speech to text, text to speech, and it will pronounce the word for you, which can be really useful. You can add notes if there's something about where you learned it or some funky piece of grammar. Make it really easy to copy and paste. You can press that button. Now there's this thing called associations, but first let me show you translations. So if I just ask it to, in fact, here's a suggested, translate to English, and I click translate, what it gives me back is a structured return, right? So it again is just a natural language request, but the way I've built it is so that it hands back something that's structured. So then I click Save Translation, and now there's another item added to my library, church bells, which is the translation of this. So if I click on this, it'll take me to church bells. If I click back on this, it goes back to Kirchenglocken. Lessons, I'll show you this in a little bit, but that is another feature, and it's useful to be able to add stuff directly from the library to your lessons. And then associations are, for example, actually, here's a good example. So you might remember that this is the transcribed text that we got Kirchenglocken from. And so because that was saved as a phrase and Kirchenglocken was saved as a phrase, they're associated because I requested one from the other, which can be useful if, for example, you have a large paragraph and you pull out a lot of sentences and then you want to know the context that you got that word from. There's a few other little controls here. You can add tags. You can favorite. There's not that much reason to do that at this point other than for filtering. So we can, for example, we can filter here. And you can see those. Part of speech. This there was nothing to specify it so far. So we can say this is a noun, right? And whether it's a word, phrase, or a recording. So you'll notice if we go to associations, click this one is a recording, right? So that's, roughly speaking, how the library works. Let's go to lessons. Oh, also I should mention, you can always just add new media. It's that same interface. So from any place on the site, you can add new media. Lessons. Now the purpose here was to generate content that I could use to study, specifically with flashcards. So flashcards was the idea. So what I wanted to do is basically be able to say, there's a concept in German that I want to work with. And I want to work with that, I want it at a certain language level. And I want it to just generate a bunch of text that I can send to the Anki app, which is a popular flashcard, spaced repetition flashcard app. So let's take adjective verb agreement, for example. Now, on the live site, this actually it'll generate 20 sentences every time you click generate. If I click generate more, here it should generate probably 2, I think, for the demo. Yeah. There are buttons here for downloading the speech to text. But what's really cool about this, it's still playing. Sorry. What you can do with this is download to Anki. So this produces an Anki file that I save here. And if I save this, I can just open it directly in the Anki app. This works on a mobile phone as well. So if you're using this website on a mobile phone, it downloads an Anki file, you tap on it, and it uploads it directly into Anki. So it's a great way of creating decks that have sort of some kind of often grammatical theme. And I find this is a really good way of internalizing grammatical concepts in a language. But when it does that, it also does it with the audio. So when you see the flashcard, you see the English, you try to figure out how to say the German, and then you can read the German, but also listen to it being pronounced, which I find very helpful for memorizing. And of course, you can also download these files as a CSV, and it includes a link to the audio. So for other types of flashcard apps, that can be really useful. You can also change the name here. So that's how lessons work. Now, another thing I wanted to be able to do is practice writing, really practice creating content, because I find that both with speaking and writing, I have a hard time sort of producing the things that I want to say. So in order to not have to spend a whole bunch of energy being creative about like what I want to write, I thought I would use a language model to prompt me. So let's say German, let's say level B1, and then let's say computer programming or computer issues as a topic. Probably want to pick something more interesting than that, but we click generate. And so now we have this topic, we generate a prompt. And so this has given us back a prompt that is fairly specific. So it's specific enough where I can actually try to write something that responds to it. Now, you can also make it shorter, longer. You can refresh and get a different prompt if you want. So here, I've already prepared some content to show. Click submit. And what this does is it shows my response. If I click on it, if I click on it here, if I click on it, I found a bug. If I click on it here, this shows what I wrote. This shows the correction, and it highlights the words that are relevant to what it changed. And then it describes in pretty great detail why it made those changes. And so you have the opportunity to really try something, see the correction. You can try it again. So I can just close this here. I can write another response, right? And so I can have, 3, 4, 5 responses, all based on the same prompt to try to really get better at communicating about a given subject. It also has some interesting, useful tools, like, for example, capturing the sentences. These are the sentences, the correct versions, so you can send those to your library. You can, of course, discuss all of this in the chat if you have more questions about what the feedback is. But that's a really cool feature that I have found to be really helpful for learning. And the thing is, you can also generate more prompts for that topic. So let's generate another one. So this is a different prompt, similar kind of concept, and it gives you the opportunity to really practice discussing that particular subject. That is mostly it. When you create an account, it'll ask you to set up your home language, in my case, obviously English, and a language you're trying to learn, in this case, German, but there's a whole lot of languages in here. And so there's really a lot of opportunity to learn really all kinds of languages. Another interesting thing that it does is, with certain aspects of the interface, if you go to settings, this is not particularly well designed yet, but when you ask for grammatical corrections, when you ask for explanations, it actually captures that conversation, that set of messages back and forth, and it analyzes it to see what you're good at, what you're not good at. And then it just maintains this insight here as a way to understand where your strengths and weaknesses are. It lists some concepts, but what I think is particularly interesting is that it'll actually add words that it has taught you or thinks it taught you to your library. And so you can click here, you can see it in the library, or if I go back, you can remove it from the history. Now this is important because as I develop more features, part of the idea is for this list of words that you've been struggling with to be reinforced in, for example, different prompts that you request in the grammar tutor section. And so the idea is to maintain a running understanding of your language, of where you struggle with the language, in order to be able to generate content that is reinforcing. So this page will get some more development, but the fundamental concept is there, and I think it's quite useful. And that should be it.